Good afternoon and welcome to the Midday News. Here's what we have in the bulletin. Teachers being called on to redouble efforts in the classroom despite local issues. Police keeping close watch in sections of St. Andrew North Police Division. And later in sports, main favorites advance in day 2 of ISA Boys and Girls Championships. Thank you for joining us. I'm Shamela Pullen. Here are the details. Choose Jamaica. That appeal to teachers from the Education Ministry's leadership. The call comes amid worry that many educators will continue to take up job opportunities overseas. Herman Green reports.
A stunning revelation. Only 10,000 of the over 37,000 students who come out of high school each year are attaining passes in maths, English, and 3 other subjects. And while the COVID-19 pandemic has some part to play, Jamaica's acting Chief Education Officer, Dr. Kassan Troop, says this is still not good enough.
We are not looking good, and we have the largest budget. So when I tell you that I am perplexed each night, it's an understatement, because I don't feel satisfied knowing that this is what we can stand and boast about. We recognize the challenges of education. Several variables impact us. Where our students are coming from, the commitment of parents, the contribution of parents, and of course our teachers, etc. So there are many things that we are not necessarily in control of, and so we still have to redouble our efforts.
Redouble efforts in the classroom, especially because of the large portion of taxpayers' funds going into education. This year in particular.
This year we are spending almost $120 billion in education. And if you know, we are in the salary review, and so the budget is going to go up further. And when we dissect that budget, we are spending over 80% on the human resource, and the payments for staff, be it at the school level, at the national level, over 80% of that is spent on the human resource. So we have to get returns from that.
Dr. Troop was speaking Monday at a function to honor some of the country's outstanding mathematics teachers. She thanked the specialists and other educators in attendance for not migrating to the promised greener pastures overseas.
I want to encourage you, don't give up on Jamaica. I know there are other looming opportunities that will come. And whilst I don't believe that you should not take a decision in your best interest, I'm also asking you to always think about the greater good. And if you are able to stay and make Jamaica land we love a place of choice to live, raise our families, and do business, I want you to choose Jamaica with me.
The educators were also encouraged to continue to be innovative and creative in the classroom so that slower learners are not left behind.
We have a responsibility not only to provide equity and to provide quality, but to stand for justice for all learners. We talk about the differences in our learners. We can't be complaining about just the ideal. Oh, we're not getting the students where we want them. We are getting the students, and we are going to be deliberate to teach at the right level. If it means that we deviate from the curriculum, that's okay. That's what we do.
The police are keeping a close watch in sections of the St. Andrew North Police Division. This is after several shootings and killings this month. More in this report.
Commander for the St. Andrew North Police Division, Superintendent Sharika Service, says one of the 2 men who were shot and injured along Chancery Street Tuesday morning is in serious condition. The commander says the man is from the Park Lane area of Red Hills Road. She says the police theorized that he was the intended target. The other man, she says, is believed to be a bystander. He was shot in the shoulder.
About 7:35 this morning, at Chancery Street, shooting incident occurred where two males were shot and injured. From information received, they were at a bus stop when 2 men drove upon a motorcycle, fired shots in the direction of one of the males who we believe is actually the intended target. But the other male who was shot and injured, reports are that he was just simply a passerby. So both of them were rushed to KPH. One of them, I was told, was in serious condition, and the other one was was stable.
She says the shooters who were traveling on a motorbike were challenged by a police team who realized what was happening.
The shooters actually escaped from the Chancery Street area on the same motorcycle that they drove upon. I understand that they drove into the St. Andrews South policing area where they either met in an accident or got thrown off the motorcycle somehow and they ran away leaving the motorcycle. So we made contact with the police officers in that space and we managed to seize the motorbike.
The commander says on Saturday the body of another man was discovered in the 100-lane area.
Because it's really a gang war between, well, some persons call the entire stretch 100 lanes, some persons have divided it to say 100 and 104 lanes. But it was over this weekend where the police, somebody was going to open a church and they stumbled upon a body. They summoned the police and upon arrival we realized that there was a male deceased in the churchyard. Also believed to be connected to the same murder of Bigger that had occurred in the Parkland space.
She referred to Jamal Taylor or Bigger, who was killed at a wholesale in Park Lane in early March. In recent times, there has been an upsurge in crime in sections of the St. Andrew North Police Division. The cop believes it's gang-related, but says the police have saturated the community in anticipation of possible reprisals. Carrie Simpson for TVJ News.
The March 31 deadline for transport operators to pay outstanding traffic tickets is just 2 days away. But the Transport Operators Development Sustainable Services, TODS, is calling for a 2 weeks extension. Karen Simpson reports.
Persons who own and operate public passenger vehicles, PPVs, and commercial carriers have until Friday, March 31 to renew all road licenses and pay outstanding tickets. If this is not done, they would be operating illegally. But President of the Transport Operators Development Sustainable Services, TODS, Edgerton Newman, is calling on the Transport Authority to delay the deadline for payments and renewals for another 2 weeks.
That call is very important. This call is very important this morning because of what I've seen yesterday and what I'll be seeing today and a couple of days ahead. We have to understand what the sector is going through after 2 years of COVID and several assistants announced for the sector that 60% of them did not receive.
Transport operators are likely to face prosecution and their vehicles seized if they are found operating without a license. But Mr. Newman argues that these operators are facing economic hardships and so they are unable to make the payments in time.
And so they are barely scraping, borrowing, and doing all manner of evil to get their fleet in a position where they can renew their license. People think that renewing a license to walk in the transport authority, hand in the papers and get back a new license. It's not so. It's a number of things. Insurance, checking your vehicle, make sure all the things are in order so that the Island Traffic Authority can give you a good bill of health.
Mr. Newman believes if all groups work together, then the transport sector will see improvements.
I believe that the Transport Authority have the transport sector at heart. I also believe that the Minister of Transport and by extension the government of Jamaica have the sector at heart. The Prime Minister last week said that he loved the transport sector. He loved the transport operators. He's a friend of the sector. And that is true. That is true. Why would you not like the transport sector or its operatives?
Carrie Simpson for TVJ News.
It's time for a break. Stay with us. More stories when we return. Welcome back to the Midday News. One woman is in critical condition following a two-vehicle crash along Municipal Boulevard in Portmore, St. Catherine this morning. According to reports, about 6 o'clock, a BMW motor car was heading towards Portmore when it crashed into a taxi, which was overtaking a line of traffic. The woman, who is yet to be identified, was pinned in the Toyota Corolla taxi. She was cut from the wreckage by members of the Jamaica Fire Brigade. Assistant Superintendent of Police Delon Lewis from the Public Safety and Traffic Enforcement Branch, P-STEP, was on location.
When the female driver was removed from the vehicle by the fire personnel, she was seen with multiple injuries all over her body, and her lower limbs appeared to be broken.
And about what time this accident took place?
This accident occurred sometime after 6 o'clock this morning.
Okay.
At that time, there was a heavy build-up of traffic along this section of the road. The impact was severe, and the severity would contribute from some level of speed.
He is again imploring motorists to reduce their speeds on the nation's roadway. It's now time for the Business Minute.
The Bank of Jamaica's Monetary Policy Committee is expected to announce its next interest rate decision today. Now, since November last year, the committee has held the rate at 7%. The central bank has been increasing interest rates in a bid to slow inflation. Now, for the 12 months to February this year, prices rose by 7.8%, the lowest point-to-point increase since December 2021. At its last decision in February, the BOJ said it would closely monitor the interest rate movements by the U.S. Federal Reserve as the committee makes its next decision. Last week, the Fed increased U.S. interest rates by 0.25 percentage point. It also indicated it could be close to the peak of its rate hikes. Analysts expect the BOJ to hold rates as inflation continues to regulate. The committee is also likely to comment on the banking jitters in the United States. Further afield, a new report shows a boost in consumer confidence in the U.S. regarding the strength of the economy. Business Group, the Conference Board's Consumer Confidence Index for March was 104.2. That's up from a revised reading of 103.4 the month before. The survey indicates consumers aren't very worried about their own banks after Silicon Valley Bank collapsed. Respondents feel the economy is improving and that jobs are plentiful, though concerns linger about inflation. And that's it for the Business Minute. I'm Shane Masters.
And here's a preview of what's coming up in this evening's health report. In this evening's health report, we look at tuberculosis.
So I have the Mycobacterium tuberculosis. You speak to me, I spray it at you, and your system inhales it, and it sets up house in your lungs. So isolation is the first step. Then confirmation I need with my mycobacteria, with my testing, and then I start my therapy. Usually, the therapy is done in hospital, and when I grew up, all our Mycobacterium tuberculosis was sensitive to 4 drugs. We start therapy in hospital with 4 drugs. Usually it's called a right therapy: rifampicin, isoniazid, pyrazinamide, and ethambutol. So you start off on all of those drugs. Now you have to understand why hospital, because that's going to be for 2 months to ensure that you take the drugs and to monitor you to see when your sputum clears the TB.
That's the health report in Primetime News at 7. And now for today's healthy living tip. Good ventilation, as TB can remain suspended in the air for several hours without no ventilation. Natural light. UV light kills off TB bacteria. And good hygiene. Covering the mouth and nose when coughing or sneezing reduces the spread of TB bacteria. Time now for the top regional and international stories.
In the region, search and rescue operations have intensified after a boat traveling from Antigua to St. Thomas in the U.S. Virgin Islands capsized early Tuesday morning. More than a dozen nationals from Antigua and Barbuda and Africa remain missing. 3 people are confirmed dead and are believed to be from African countries. According to reports, 32 people were on the vessel when it capsized and sank in deep waters off the coast of St. Kitts and Nevis. 16 people have been rescued. On the international scene, outrage is growing in Mexico following a fire at a migrant center on the U.S. border that killed 38 migrants. Authorities say the fire broke out after they picked up and detained a group of migrants from the streets of the border city, which is across from El Paso, Texas. At least 28 Guatemalan nationals are among the dead. The blaze is one of the worst in recent years in Mexico, which has been dealing with record levels of crossing on its northern border. And those were the top regional and international news. I'm Carrie Ann Simpson.
We head to a quick break. When we come back, we'll have your midday sports report with Giovanni Dennis.